Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, the morning after report. Yeesh. Hope you got something stiff in that coffee. 45-17, going the wrong way for the good guys. We're digesting it all. Up ahead with Chris Level on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
It's the morning after report. And the morning after in West Texas, this time around. Oh, that is terrible. That is terrible. What an awful taste as the Red Raiders fall 45-17, the hands of the Baylor Bears. Without that pesky fourth quarter, would have looked nowhere near as bad as the final score indicates, but unfortunately got to play the fourth quarter. And truly the meaning of from here, it's possible was on display in the fourth quarter as you had three quarterbacks involved throwing three interceptions. Wild and weird stuff Saturday night from Jones Stadium. Just not the kind of weirdness that we intended, of course, as Tech fans, thinking he'd have an opportunity to pull off a nice win, homecoming-ish kind of weekend in the LBK. Night game, Patrick Mahomes is in the building. But damn, Baylor sure was making it tough on you. The opposition does have the opportunity to try. The opposition does have the opportunity to do their best. So I think you have to credit Baylor for a lot of what they made happen Saturday night at Jones Stadium. Of course, Texas Tech in many ways, once again, could not get out of their own way. We will hear from the man who is roaming the sidelines, sideline reporter for the Texas Tech Sports Network, Chris Level, coming up in just a bit, and a couple of numbers to take a gander at if you were joining us on YouTube. Do subscribe if you haven't yet, and tell a friend, tell a foe, tell anyone you know. Subscribe on YouTube to Locked On Texas Tech. The tail of the tape, not going to make you feel any better, as the Red Raiders really statistically dominated in most categories. Only 308 total yards for the Red Raider offense. And look, let's make no mistake about this. The offense, a dud. The defense, left hanging out to dry. Once again, I felt like Tim DeRuyter's group did all they could do to compensate for and overcome an offense that is never complementarily playing for the defense. I don't understand still the approach where you have to turn over and surrender essentially the fortunes of your football program to an offense, and then everybody else just has to deal with it. Why can it not be the other way around? Why doesn't everybody just deal with the fact that you've got a defense that's the best aspect of your team right now and maybe tailor a game plan to reflect something like that? Apparently, when you're paid many dollars to make these types of decisions, that's not what the logic will tell you. It's only when you're paid absolutely nothing, like I am, to make those types of decisions that you wind up with that train of thought. But that's my train of thought today. Defense was left hung out to dry by the offense. 308 total for the Tech offense, 159 through the air, 149 on the ground. Any ideas about running the damn ball this week? Well, I've got a few. You see that time of possession number? Woo! Ugly as ugly gets, and we'll get to some more of that breakdown in just a moment, quarter by quarter. But 40 minutes for Baylor, less than 20 for the Texas Tech Red Raiders. You got to be playing some special football to ever expect to win games or be in games when the disparity is such, doubling you up pretty much as far as time of possession was concerned. And then you see at the bottom of the graphic there on YouTube, on the screen if you're watching on YouTube, the most or as devastating of a number as you had involved in the game. Yeah, the turnover margin. After you had your best of the season last time out against West Virginia, you go the complete opposite direction. Wow, 5-1. 5 giveaways for the Red Raider offense, 1 takeaway for the Texas Tech defense. That ain't going to get it done, Jack. That dog will not hunt. Statistically, again, offensively for the Red Raiders, just tough sledding every which way you slice it through the air. We saw all 3 quarterbacks to no avail. We saw Baron Morton looking like a freshman. Finally, I told you this was going to happen last week. Didn't know it was going to happen this time around, but that he would have one of those days where he's coming back down to earth and looking more like a freshman. And yeah, you see the numbers there. 11 for 33. Yikes. 152 through the air, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. Barron still made a couple of big plays, and one of those where he's using his feet, we'll talk about with Chris. Really impressive, but was not clicking as far as the passing game is concerned. Some of that at the feet of Zach Kittley and his offense, his quarterback, his offensive line that allowed 6 sacks on the day. But I must remind you again, a lot of that at the feet of the Baylor Bears, really dominating in the trenches, and regardless of what type of girlish still rules the day as it stands right now in 2022. Nothing doing as far as the passing game. Running game kind of look like something doing, but you're not doing it often enough, and you're not doing it early to establish something that the defense has to account for. That was always one of my biggest frustrations in the Cliff Kingsbury era, and you've heard, like I have, over and over and over and over, Zach Kittley, Cliff Kingsbury, simpatico as far as how they see offense. I felt like Cliff always gave up on the ground game way too early, would not stick with it, would bail out, and then you're chucking it 60 times, also to no avail. Now, sometimes when you're down by wide margins, obviously, you've got to adjust your game plan, and you're going to have to throw it more. And I know that Cliff Kingsbury and his teams were in plenty of those situations. I didn't feel like that was the situation for the first 2.5 to 3 quarters Saturday night at Jones Stadium. So why you weren't investing more in that or more consistently, I do not know. Would be curious to hear what the answer is. And you're going to hear things like, well, it was a stacked box. Well, the numbers are this, the numbers are that. Look, if you can't pass it, you may have to just think about kicking somebody's ass at the line of scrimmage every once in a while, regardless of what the numbers are. It ain't going to be 11 on 5. What does that mean? Does that translate into additional backs in the backfield? Does that translate into more tight ends to compensate for numbers? I don't know. But I know that we're going to get a lot this week of, well, the matchups, the numbers were not advantageous. We take what the defense gives us, which was an echo again from the Cliff Kingsbury era. Just a whole lot of that I don't like as far as that thought process is concerned. Is there ever a chance for you to dictate anything to the defense, or is it always just lining up and then wondering what they're going to allow you to do? And so that's what we do. I know I'm oversimplifying it, but football is not that complicated of a game. And sometimes I feel like you put yourself in really, really bad positions when you try to overcomplicate it. So did that lead to a bad day for the offense, or was it just simply Baylor being really tough defensively? Well, the answer is probably a lot of all of the above. A combination of factors led to what happened to you offensively and what happened to you within the context of the game. Defensively, again, I just thought the defense was put in bad positions over and over and over and over and over. Credit to guys like Krishawn Merriweather. Kosai Eldridge continues to play really good football. Eldridge really been coming on as we got into the second half of the season. Merriweather continues to have, I think, his best season as a Red Raider. Tyree Wilson continues to fill up the box score. You saw Malik Dunlap continuing to get busy on the back end as well. Tony Bradford making some noise with 3 tackles behind the line of scrimmage, one of those a sack, and Taylor Demerson also busy as far as the tackle total there in the backfield. But the graphic that will give you nightmares. So if you have a stiff drink to pour before I put this on the screen, I would advise you do so. And if you're a child, bring a parent into the room maybe to look at this with them. It's going to be scary. Time of possession dominated from the get-go. Look at it. First quarter, 11 minutes, 43 seconds for Baylor, 3:17 for Texas Tech. Second quarter, 10:38 for Baylor, 4:22 for the Red Raiders. Less than 8 minutes of time of possession in the first half for Texas Tech. You had almost a little less than 25 in the first half there for Baylor. Didn't get much better, though. It evened out a little bit in the second half. But the Red Raiders outright, as I already told you, doubled up 40 minutes to about 20 as far as time of possession by the Baylor Bears. Just really incredible and really difficult to win a football game whenever you are in that kind of spot. Now we will turn to my co-host, Big Handsome, the great Chris Level, sideline reporter for the Texas Tech Sports Network on football game days. So he is certainly seeing it there up close. Connected with Chris on the phone for this conversation, and essentially just began with the simple question, What the hell happened?
One, I think Baylor played clearly its best game of the season. I think that's the team that everybody felt like was going to win the Big 12, that we saw that version of it, against Texas Tech, unfortunately. And, they're really, we said it all week. They're really good up front on either side of the ball. And I thought they pretty much owned you up front on either side. And I don't think if you're a lineman, Tyree Wilson made a few plays and Jalen Hutchings made a big play here and there, but I just thought your offensive line kind of got worked over pretty good. And for the most part, your defensive line in most cases wasn't able to stop Richard Reese, especially when it counted. And we can look at the numbers and yards per game and all that, but it was like, okay, when you needed to stop, when you needed to be able to stop a run, you just really couldn't do it. And I just thought their big people are a lot better than yours. And that's kind of was the difference in the game. I thought they owned the trenches all night. And then it doesn't matter who you're playing, where you play. Well, you turn it over 5 times, guess what's going to happen?
Yeah, we've talked about that.
Yeah, you had we may never see this again, but you had all 3 of your quarterbacks throw an interception in the fourth quarter.
From here, it's possible, Chris.
So it was just – I thought Baylor's defense – they had a really good game plan. They really, I thought, slowed Barron down. Yep. He held on to it a bit. I thought you couldn't get to certain things. You maybe should have tried to run it a bit earlier in the game, but I don't know. I don't know what was going to work. They were just better than you were, unfortunately, and you just didn't have a lot of space or time. But again, I don't know. There's so many games. Like last week, these are polar opposites from last week. Last week, you come out of that game versus West Virginia, and there's really nothing you look at that you feel bad about. Every aspect of your team against Baylor, I don't know what you look at and come away going, "Oh, I felt really good about this." I don't know right. I don't know what it would have been. So it was just a frustrating night, and and now we don't feel near as good about the direction of the season, because guess what? You got stared you in the face next weekend.
Yep. Top 10 on the road. Should be a lot of fun in Lubbock East. We got plenty of time this week to get to that. But Chris, I'm wondering what you made of the quarterback usage. I thought I wasn't surprised to maybe see a swap here or there. I thought some of the timing of it may be a little bit strange. Honestly, and that's just my opinion, but I kind of thought the first time we saw Donovan Smith, it was following 2 of the better looks from Baron Morton, I guess, that he had as far as possessions on the day. But that's just me, man. What did you make of the timing and the usage of multiple quarterbacks?
Well, the plan was, and this was the case a week ago too, is that you got Donovan short yardage situations, red zone, short yardage. Well, when it works, then you go to tempo and you keep him in there. And I think that the self-scouting that you kind of do in your bye week, basically it shows you when Donovan's in there and some of this stuff that they just don't really throw it much. And so I think you try to, catch, maybe steal one a little bit. And so he, on the second plays, after an initial run, he's gonna throw it. That's kind of the dynamic. And then I was kind of wondering how long they would stick with Barron, whether that's Joey or Zach Kitley, and they probably went a little longer than maybe I thought. But in some ways, you don't want to hurt his confidence and all these things. But then Shuck comes in and makes a mistake with his first throw. So it unfortunately in that case, it's because who do you come away from feeling really good about right now? It was not. Barron, that game, he made some plays, but that was a game where it really looked like, okay, he looked like a freshman, and he's holding on to it. It just and the first interception he throws off his back foot in a triple coverage. Yeah, you just cannot. In no circumstances can you do that? But it looked really big for him against Baylor, and it looked like the moment for the first time was, he just looked like a true freshman or a redshirt freshman, that didn't have a ton of experience. That's what I kind of saw, and other people may view it differently, but it just I don't think you come away from that game still feeling just, like, oh man, he's guaranteed, he's locked in, he's got a long leash. I mean, I don't know if I view it that way.
I'm not the guy in the headset to make those calls. I expected mistakes. I expected a freshman day here or there. I didn't know if it was going to be this one, but obviously he wasn't just going to look incredible the entire time he's on the field this year. I was a little disappointed that maybe he didn't ride longer, and I may be the only one in Lubbock saying that today, because I get that people were getting frustrated with the offense and you're trying to make something happen. But all the things that we've seen from Donovan Smith as far as mistakes and the leash that he's been given in that time, and some of that just out of necessity, I get it. I just feel like Barron deserves that and more. So like a change, I guess, for a moment, I kind of get, the old Chris Todd swap. But I was hoping that, at least personally, if it was my decision, I would have given that dude a country mile worth of leash to run with. And maybe they did, and he got to the end of it. I don't know. But, yeah, it's just a frustrating day all around. And, boy, it sure should make for an interesting quarterback conversation this week. Chris, before I let you go here, man, you mentioned the running game already. Maybe you should have run it a little bit earlier. I just have really no expectation that Zach Kittley is going to run the ball or stick with it, because he's a Cliff Kingsbury disciple, and Cliff Kingsbury would never do that either. But you're coming off of a week where you went over 200 with 3 running backs, and obviously it was nowhere near that type of impact this time around. Was that, you think, more in the hands of Texas Tech? Was that more Baylor forcing it to be that way? How are you kind of chopping that part of it up?
I think when people talk about like what Cliff was and how Zach understands it, or kind of how he learned from it, is that the defense really dictates how much is the run game is going to be there. I think if you run it in the first half, in many ways, you're going against what they're giving you. They kind of had loaded it up, and they're kind of forcing you to throw it a little bit and hold on to it a little bit. And so you would have been running it against a heavy box, I think, early on in the game. But maybe you should have just done that just to try to see if you could get Barron going a little bit. But that's why you threw it so much early, and Barron just wasn't. I mean, your receivers didn't win. He missed some throws. I mean, the overthrow to Nehemiah Martinez would have been a touchdown, in my opinion. He threw that ball way too high. I thought, Loic Fungi doesn't do him any favors and just drops a touchdown pass. So that's not on. But 11 of 34, 3 interceptions. I mean, that's the reality of it. I thought Barron's scramble, though, was a phenomenal play. He does get an easy touchdown. This is where I think Zach Kittley did try to give him. I mean, they're first and goal, or I forget the downs or whatever it was, but you're on the 2-yard line and you throw it twice. And I thought, to me, I felt like, and I even said this on the broadcast, I thought that was just Zach trying to get Barron confidence, because they run a play and they throw it to Henry Teeter on an easy throw, and I thought, you're just trying to get him feeling good about himself, because I'm telling you, and from talking to Joey after the game, he felt like the moment was really big for Barron a little bit, and not that he's faulting him for it. It's just, it was a night game. Mahomes is in the house. You got all this stuff, and it was just the first time he'd seen some glimpses of. But he kind of calmed down, but it just. I don't know, he was running for his life, and he just made some poor decisions. But I thought you have to credit Baylor a lot too.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt about that. You can't get around it. Baylor made a lot of that really hard on you. And they played, I think you're right, the best game of their season. Plenty to parse this week as we digest this one and look ahead to Texas Christian on the road. So looking forward to that, Chris. And hopefully we're still talking about a team that will be resilient and continue to compete. So we'll get back with you on the other side, my man. Thanks for the time.
You bet, Casey. Keep hope alive, brother.
And there you have it, the Morning After Report, Baylor edition. Nothing like we hoped it would be. 45-17 as the good guys go down and now hit the road. Lubbock East, the destination, as the Red Raiders will hook up with the Horned Frogs of Texas Christian. Still plenty to process, as we will hear from Tech head coach Joey McGuire to kick off the week, of course, looking back on the Bears and Red Raiders and getting ready for that big collision, the West Texas Championship, the battle for the saddle is on deck. For Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Hope you'll join us throughout the week. And bonus episodes on the way this week, so keep your head on a swivel. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube so you never miss an episode. See you on the other side right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day on Locked On Texas Tech.